Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome yet to another episode of Dinner Guide. I am going to be your host, Chef Andy, and today we are actually not going to focus much on the cooking, but we're going to be playing with cutting techniques, and I'm actually going to take you through the slow process of stir fries. So just to introduce some of the ingredients in front of you today, from the front I have some tomato paste, some barbecue sauce and some oregano. And then I've got some quartered white onion, I've got some oyster sauce, some teriyaki sauce and some olive oil. And then I've got some salt, some chopped coriander, I've got some tomato, quarter tomato, I've got some spring onion, some julienne carrots, and then I've got some butternut courgettes, I've got some star-cut peppers, and I've got some eggplant here that was fried earlier. So we're gonna just jump into a short break. I'm gonna give you a bit of time to get a pen and paper, and when we come back I'm just going to illustrate a few of the cuts that are on the table, and then we're just gonna go straight to the pan to my left, and then I'm gonna show you a technique of how to make a very simple Chinese stir fry, having played with some of the cuts that we have displayed on the table today. So see you in a little while. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those who missed out on what we had actually introduced just before we took a commercial break, we are actually going to be playing with a few cuts today. I'm actually just going to take some time and illustrate some cuts that you can practice while doing your stir fries. We don't have a lot of variety, but I'm going to play with a small variety that's in front of me now. So just before we get that pan heated up, I'm just going to illustrate just a few. So I'll probably start with the carrot, which is a julienne cut. So julienne being a very small cut, I'm just going to illustrate that professionally how it's done. So I'm just going to use the courgette to play with about 3 different cuts. So I'm just going to first split that into 3 cuts, into 3 chunks. So I'm just going to split that up quickly. So basically I'm just going to illustrate a different a variety of cuts that we actually use in the kitchen. So it's actually cuts that actually do a big impact. They actually have a big impact in the way your stir fry comes out. So it's for stir fries particularly, it's always about how best to cut your vegetables, because remember, it's a very simple dish. There's not much technique to it except the cuts. It's just a display of your knife skills. So I'm just going to take you slowly through it, okay? So we're just going to start with the same cuts that is right in front of you. So I'm just going to take you through the process of how I got there. So most important, a sharp knife. So we're just going to start, I'm going to start with the longest piece here. So all I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to take the sides out, because this is basically the best part that we can use for the cutting. So I'm just gonna quickly take those parts off. So basically I'm just gonna line them up, and I'm just gonna explain them to you as we go along. So I'm just gonna start from my left and I'm gonna work my way right. So I'm just gonna illustrate the cuts first, and then we're gonna go through them. So I'm just gonna go like that. Remember the technique with cutting, it's basically all in the hands, and it's actually all in your wrists. A lot of people have to actually ask me the same question every now and then. How do you manage to hold the knife? How do you manage to get a stable cut every time? So the trick is simple. So I'm just going to illustrate with this small piece. So basically I'm just going to put the knife on the table and start from scratch. The trick behind chopping, as I said, the best knives to use are chef knives. As you can see, it's actually got a nice curve to it. And the beauty of this is, I'm gonna just illustrate, the beauty of it is when the tip of the knife hits the board, the knife just rolls straight to the end. And that's actually a trick that we chefs use. So basically the idea is to just let the knife just rock continuously as you just cut. So remember, the knife is already sharp. I don't have to put any effort into it. I don't have to press into the board. All I have to do is direct my knife. The second thing is the hand that you're using for your support. So it doesn't really matter if you're right-handed or if you're left-handed. I'll always tell you the same thing over and over again. The hand that guides your knife is basically the hand that guides your cut. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it in slow motion. So what I do is, the first thing is I put all 4 fingers on the piece of courgette right under my fingers. So this is to make sure that I have grip on it. This is to make sure it doesn't slide while I'm cutting, and it's to make sure that my fingers are also intact onto the board. So the beauty of that is it actually gives me a bit of more grip with the knife, because if I have more grip on my left hand, the right hand is a little easier to just work through. And again, I'm just going to use the outer part of my knuckle, so it's just right in front of your knuckle bit there. So this is what basically guides you. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold onto the courgette. I'm just going to have the knife sit right next to my finger here, right in front of my knuckle bone. And all I'm going to do is, while I chop, I'm going to pull my hand back, and I'm just going to let the knife continue following my hand. So the knife actually sticks on the board. So all I'm doing, I'm just going to do it now. So all you do is, if you're going to pick a starting point, let's say there. If I'm going to start there, it means my starting point, I'm just going to have my knife as a starting point there. And all I'm going to do is have my knuckle bone just in line with as much thickness as I want out of the courgette. So I'm just going to have my knuckle bone there, and I'm just going to let the knife roll down. So you see, it's actually just a rocking motion. It's just a continuous rocking motion. So I'm just going to pull back. And then what happens is I just pull my knuckle slightly back like that, and then drive my knife right through again. Pull it back, drive it right through again, pull it back, right through again. And as you can see, it always gives you the same precision every time. So the beauty of using a sharp knife, as I said, you don't have to put a lot of effort into it. All you have to do is guide your hands, and the knife does the rest for you. So I'm just gonna do it all over again. I'm just gonna do it a little faster now so that you can actually see the motion. So I'm just gonna grab a fresh piece here, and all I'm gonna do, I'm actually just gonna do it at an angle so that you can see it. So all I'm going to do is, as I said, the knife does most of the work, my hands just guide. So remember, it's an effortless process. The knife is sharp, it actually does the work for you. So all I'm going to do is I'm just gonna let the knife roll. And as you see, it's just a constant rocking motion, very effortless, simple, precision every time. So I'm just gonna take you through a few of the cuts that we chefs like to use even for stir fries. So I always like to start with my Julienne Strips, which is what I have now. So these are basically just thin Julienne strips, so you can just practice. I would say if you're gonna practice with this, a lot of ingredients, a lot of good ingredients that you can work with. Try and work with anything that's got the shape of a courgette or a carrot. The beauty of it is it's a little more firm even from the feel. It's a little easier to practice with. It doesn't mash, so you actually get the grip out of it. So that is Julienne. I'm just gonna show you now butternut. So butternut is a bit chunkier, so it's just a bit chunk size cubes, or rather cube size strips. So all I'm going to do is I'm gonna take one side out, and then I'm gonna turn it 90 degrees. I'm gonna work my knife again, turn it 90 degrees again, work it to the bottom, 90 degrees again, work it right through. So basically what you get is that shape. That's exactly what you're looking for, right? So I'm just gonna put those on the side. So when you're looking, if you're looking at getting a good julienne cut out of any vegetable, especially any vegetable of that nature, it's all about just getting, the idea is to get it to a cube shape or a rectangular shape so that you can be able to actually turn it sideways and cut. So So I'm just gonna illustrate. So this is a little more, and I'll show it this way. So this is a little more easier to slice than that, because this can easily slide and you can easily cut yourself. Whereas on the other hand, this does not slide, it's firm on the board, it's flat, it's easy. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to have my finger in there, and as I said, let my knife just go with the flow. So this is a few cuts that I'm just going to illustrate quickly and roughly. So I'm just gonna go cube size. So as I said, very simple technique of getting your cubes out of your courgette, out of your carrots. So now we have strips, we have cubes. Now I'm gonna show you how to get the finer size. I'm gonna grab a nice fresh piece here in front of me. So all you want to do is you wanna get very thin strips. So all I'm going to do is I'm just gonna tighten the grip a little bit, and I'm just gonna get a little more precise cuts out of this one as compared to the first one. So as I said, just let the knife roll, just let the knife rock right across the board like that. Simple. And then once you get to this point, you're just gonna grab all the strips as they are, and you're just gonna turn them 90 degrees again. Remember, it's always a little easier to turn them in 90 degrees because it's faster, it's effortless, and it's quick. Remember, the idea is to try and get through your chopping as fast as possible. So once I turn them 90 once, I'm just gonna let the knife go right through them again. So I'm just gonna continue just working my way right through to the end. All right, easy peasy, and it's that simple. So basically, as I said, it always gives you a nice precise cut. Remember, the trick is always to have a firm grip. Remember, also pick a knife that is light for you. Pick a knife that fits your hand. This particular knife for me works because I have a bit of a long finger, a bit of a long index finger. So the beauty of it is once I grip the knife, I can get I get a good grip right all the way to the inside. Remember, you just want your fingers to get to the inner side of your palm. Your thumb is just to give you a grip on the knife. This is just to make sure the knife doesn't tilt sideways. Also gives you a grip when you're trying to really get those precise cuts, and if you're cutting something that's a little thicker and it needs a little bit more effort. So it's been a pleasure showing you a few of the cuts that we're working through today. As I said, we're just going to keep doing this over and over again. I will mention a few cuts as we continue with some more episodes to come. I will continue showing you more techniques of how to play with your knife, but for now we're just going to stop it at that, and I'm just gonna clear this section quickly, and we're just gonna rush quickly right into our main event here. So as I said, we're just going to work through a very simple Chinese stir fry. Very simple technique. As I said, the trick is actually in the cuts. So the beauty of the stir fry is actually in the precision of the cuts. The taste as well is just a bit of a playing technique with a couple of acidic ingredients, a couple of sweet ingredients, a bit of some gravy, a bit of everything. So basically it's something we always refer to as umami. So it's just a balance between your sweet, your sour, and everything else that comes with it. So without further ado, I'm just gonna bring the flame a little higher. Remember, the trick to a stir fry is a hot smoking pan. The idea is to cook it as fast as possible, as quick as possible, in the shortest time possible. Remember, the idea is not to cook and bring your temperature low. It's actually to keep it at the highest point until the end of the cooking process. So which I'm just going to illustrate now. So this is just going to warm up quickly. We're just gonna give that a second. So a couple of the ingredients we're gonna be working with, for those who missed the introduction bit, I'm just gonna start from the front. I have some tomato paste, I have some barbecue sauce, I have some oregano, I have some quartered white onion, I have some oyster sauce and some teriyaki sauce, I have some olive oil, I have some chopped chives, some tomatoes, some chopped coriander, I have some salt, I've got two color kinds of peppers, I've got some courgette here, I've got some eggplant here that I fried earlier. So this is basically it was actually just to emphasize on the different kinds of techniques you can play to your stir fry. So I'm just gonna go right into it. So our pan is now just nice and hot. I'm just gonna go with a bit of olive oil now. Give it a nice general drizzle. Remember, you're only gonna oil this one, so always get the first step right. Right, so we're just gonna let that come to the smoking stage, and then always remember to just keep wiggling your pan around. Make sure you've got all that oil covering the surface of your pan, like that. Very simple. So as you can see, we're just starting to get the flames up. So I'm just gonna go right into it. So remember, the idea is to always start with the vegetables that are toughest because they take longer to cook, and finish with the ones that are tender because they're already tender. It's easier to finish off. So for this ones, I'm actually just gonna go with the peppers and the courgettes, which is right in front of me. Remember, the pan might flame, the pan is hot, so please don't worry. I am going to say this again, before you try this, make sure you get a bit of consultation before you play with your pan. If you're not sure about how to do it, you're gonna see it now and you're gonna actually learn it from scratch. So I'm just gonna start with some of my red peppers, gonna put them there. And some of my green peppers, I'm gonna put them there. And a bit of my courgettes right at the back here. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shove the pan forward and pull it back, so you might actually see a bit of a flame. So you're gonna see it now, right? Just a small shake. And I'm just gonna pull that back. Remember, the idea is to keep the pan stable. Don't freak out if the flames come up. If you do freak out, or if you can't bring the flame down, just pour a bit of water, the flame will reduce. So now we're just gonna get a nice color of the vegetables now. Give that a nice toss. Okay, I'm just gonna put those aside. Then I'm gonna grab a bit of my onions here. I've got a bit of my courgettes, I've got some spring onions, some coriander, and of course, last but not least, the sauces that I'm going to be using to base the recipe. So I'm just gonna start with some teriyaki sauce, a little bit at the back, and then a bit of oyster sauce at the back as well. Gonna give that another toss, get that coated nicely. Right, a bit of barbecue sauce. Right, and then I'm just gonna go in with my onions now. Right, a bit of chopped spring onions, a bit of quartered white onions. Swirl your pan around, pull it back and forth a few times, get the coat there. Remember, you don't wanna reduce the heat, you wanna get this cooking fast. Right, so it's gonna get a bit smoky in here. We're just gonna take a commercial break. I'm just going to continue doing the same thing. The eggplants are gonna go in last. We're gonna finish it off with some coriander, some carrot, and when we come back from the short break, we're just gonna go right to plating. See you in a short while. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We took a short commercial break and now we are back. We're just going to now finish off the stir fry that we were doing earlier. So in there I have some color peppers. I've got some red and some green pepper. I've got some white onion, some spring onion. Now I'm just gonna go in with the rest. Just gonna go in with a bit of tomato now. Right, a bit of tomato paste, just about half a teaspoon. There we go. Right. So give that a quick toss. Right, and then a bit of the carrots just for color. Remember, we're just getting to the last bit. As I said, you don't want your veggies to be too soft. You don't want them to be mushy. Right, then I'm gonna go in with some oregano. And then a bit more oyster sauce just for flavor. A bit of the barbecue sauce, tiny little bit, about half a teaspoon. So remember, all these flavors are all incorporating. The veggies are just slightly cooked. They're not too soft. They're not too tough. I'm gonna give that a good toss. And then last but not least, we go in with our eggplant. Remember, these were deep fried a little earlier. This we're just gonna throw in there. So this gives it a bit of color, gives it a nice presentation at the end. So simple as that. Give that a nice toss. And then last but not least, some chopped coriander. Alright, so simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. Finish that off with some salt. Tiny little pinch. Remember, the teriyaki is a little salty. Balance that with a bit of oyster, a bit of barbecue, so there's a bit more flavor in there. The salt is just to complement the dish. Then we're just gonna give that a nice quick last finish toss. Then we're just gonna turn that off. So that was a very simple stir fry. As I said, the technique is to just have a hot pan. You wanna flash fry every single vegetable. As I said, start with your root vegetables, your carrots. If you have potatoes, anything that is root and is in that same category, you wanna cook those first because they take a little longer. Remember, those are not gonna just tenderize really quick. So start with those. Work your way towards everything else that's actually tastier and crunchier and cooks a little faster. So you'll be finishing off with your herbs or anything fresh like your parsley, your coriander, anything in between that. The peppers can come in much later in between. The eggplant had already been deep fried, so remember that had already been cooked. So now we're just going to go to the last bit of the dish now, which is the plating bit. I'm just going to show you how to get a bit of a presentation to it. So we're just going to push all those to the side. I'm just going to bring that to the center. So remember, the key idea is to just, it's only about presenting the dish. Remember, it already looks good on the pan. As you can see, it's got a nice, beautiful color. So now all we're going to do is just play with the plating. So I'm just going to show you a few techniques of how to achieve that. So I'm going to start with the biggest chunk vegetables at the bottom because they do make the appearance. So I'm just going to start with the eggplant. I'm just going to go right through the middle like that. Alright, you can change the plating if you like. If you have a better technique than I do, please just go with your technique. I'm just going to go with anything that flows. Right, so the eggplant, as you can see, that goes right at the bottom. The bigger chunks at the bottom, it looks better, it appeals more. I'm just gonna grab my tongs now. Same thing, I'm just gonna play now with the onions. Remember, it's all about just playing with the colors. Just get that visual in there. Just gonna play around with those, just placing them just randomly all over the plate. Remember, you want to spread it out. You don't want to cluster everything that's similar in shape and color at one spot. Just gonna play around with those. Right, so simple plating techniques. Remember, your chopping already did the work for you. That does more than 80% of the appearance. Your knife already did the work for you, so it's now just a matter of finishing that off. I'm just gonna grab a spoon here, then we're just gonna finish that off. So I'm just gonna grab and mix all that together. Remember, these are the more smaller pieces, the more smaller chunks. I'm just gonna grab them and just go right on top of the eggplant like that. So as you can see, the colors do stand out. I am missing a few yellow peppers. That would have actually stood out really well. You could get some yellow out of that. If you can get some marrows in season, I recommend it. You can also play around with some fruits. Fruits like oranges, pineapples really work well with the stir fry. Remember, it's all about just being fresh. The idea is always about just being a little fresh, being a little creative. Remember, stir fry is all about color, it's all about presentation. So I'm just gonna give my plate a nice quick wipe like that. Right, simple stuff. And then I'm just gonna finish this off. I'm just gonna garnish my plate on the side like that. So very easy technique of doing your own stir fry at home. As I said, practice makes perfect. take your time to play around with your knife. Make sure you're working with a sharp knife at the end of the day. Remember, the sharper the knife, the clearer the cut. With those few words, it's been a pleasure being with you today. I guess this can be served, you can actually just serve this with anything in relation to rice, steamed pasta. You can have it on its own. You can actually have it also a little cooler. You can give that time to cool off. You can have that even on your salad. Just throw some lettuce in there and you don't even need a dressing for that. It'll just go on its own. So from the studios, it's been a pleasure. I have been your host, Chef Andy. You have been watching Dinner Guide on BrandPlus TV. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope to see you guys on the next episode of Dinner Guide, where we will be playing with a more unique, a more better approach of looking at your ingredients in this modern day. Remember, we're only about bringing the freshest ingredients to you, the most local ingredients to you, and showing you actually the best way to come up with creative ways with them. It's been a pleasure to be with you today from the studios, and for myself, goodbye.